Have you ever wondered why the people who seem the least likely to succeed often rise to positions of power? It's a paradox that has puzzled many throughout history. Why do the weak, the quiet, and the underestimated sometimes end up with more influence than the strong and outspoken? The truth lies in a concept Machiavelli famously explored: the subtle art of gaining power through strategy, manipulation, and perception, rather than sheer strength. We all know the loudest voice in the room doesn't always win. In fact, the ones who dominate with power and force often make one critical mistake: they overexpose themselves. People who rely solely on their strength, whether physical or vocal, fail to understand the true nature of power. They believe that to have control, they must be the most dominant force in the room. However, Machiavelli reveals that real power is not about brute force. It's about knowing when to act and when to remain in the shadows. Think about it. What happens when a person acts with extreme force or displays power openly? They become a target. They make themselves vulnerable. The real manipulators, the ones who understand Machiavelli's philosophy, play a quieter game. They understand the value of patience, of waiting for the right moment, and using others' weaknesses against them. These are the quiet ones, the ones who are underestimated by everyone around them, yet they often have the most control over the situation. The lesson here is simple, yet profound. True strength lies in the ability to remain unseen while gaining power. The loudest voices may seem powerful in the short term, but they inevitably fade. The quieter ones, the ones who use patience and subtlety, are the ones who control the game in the long run. Machiavelli's teachings remind us that strength, when it is flaunted, becomes a weapon that can be turned against you. Those who seem weak or helpless often possess the greatest tools for power because they are not perceived as a threat. The clever ones are those who use the power of invisibility to their advantage. They don't need to shout to be heard. They only need to know when to step in, when to make a move, and how to do so without drawing attention. The key is manipulation, but not in the overt sense. No, manipulation doesn't have to be aggressive or loud. It can be subtle, gentle even. The truly weak individuals who rise to power understand this. They understand that perception is everything. If you can make others underestimate you, then you've already won the game. They know how to play the long game, biding their time until others have revealed their vulnerabilities. The weak understand that power isn't just about what you do, but about how you make others perceive you. When people think you're harmless, when they think you're not capable of challenging them, that's when you can strike. This ability to remain unnoticed, to stay in the background, is what gives you the leverage to manipulate situations and people around you. Think about the most powerful figures in history. How many of them were the loudest or most outwardly aggressive? The answer is far fewer than you might think. It's those who understood the art of subtlety, who knew that power lies in knowing when to act and when to wait. The ones who were underestimated often ended up on top because they played the game carefully and strategically, with great precision. Machiavelli's teachings are often misunderstood. Many believe that power is something you must take by force, or that it's only available to those who are naturally strong. But in reality, power is far more subtle than that. The truly powerful know how to manipulate perception and use it to their advantage. People who seem weak often understand this more than anyone else. They know how to hide their true intentions and motives behind a facade of vulnerability or helplessness. One of the most valuable lessons Machiavelli teaches us is that visibility is often your enemy. When you put yourself in the spotlight, you give others the opportunity to take aim at you. But when you remain in the shadows, others are forced to underestimate you. This is when you have the power to manipulate situations in ways that are undetectable. You don't need to push yourself into the spotlight to gain control. The quieter you are, the more you can observe, the more you can plan, and the more powerful you become. Take a moment to think about it. How often do we underestimate the quiet ones in the room? We assume that the loudest person must be the most important, the most capable, or the most influential. But history is filled with stories of the quiet, seemingly weak individuals who outlasted their more vocal counterparts. They didn't make a fuss. They didn't need to. They let others fight for attention while they quietly worked behind the scenes, building their power and waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. This is Machiavelli's dark truth. The ones who seem weak often hold the most power. They know that the strongest move is often the one that doesn't make a sound. The quiet game is the one that wins in the end. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the art of power, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a strategy that could change your life. One of the most striking aspects of Machiavelli's teachings is the idea of being underestimated. People who are underestimated often hold the greatest potential for success. Why? Because the world doesn't expect them to rise, and in that ignorance lies their greatest strength. They have the freedom to act without scrutiny, to manipulate situations in their favor, and to ultimately control outcomes without anyone realizing what's happening. When people underestimate you, they give you an incredible advantage. They assume you lack the strength, the intelligence, or the ability to succeed. But here's the catch. Those who are underestimated are often the ones who are most strategic and cunning. They don't rush to prove themselves. They don't need validation. Instead, they take their time, carefully calculating each step to ensure they remain a step ahead of everyone else. Machiavelli teaches that those who are underestimated can gain more power than those who flaunt their strength. This doesn't mean you should appear weak or passive. Rather, it's about understanding the value of patience and subtlety in your actions. The quiet ones are often the ones who ultimately rise to power because they know how to remain in control without ever showing their hand. It's about letting others make the first move, revealing their weaknesses, and then taking advantage of that knowledge when the time is right. By remaining underestimated, you maintain the element of surprise. You can act at the perfect moment and take control of the situation without anyone seeing it coming. This is the power of invisibility, a concept Machiavelli understood all too well. Those who can keep their true intentions hidden, while others unknowingly expose their weaknesses, are the ones who come out on top. Machiavelli's core idea about power is rooted in the understanding that control is more powerful than strength. If you understand how to manipulate a situation without appearing to do so, you hold an immense amount of power. It's not about being physically strong, nor is it about being loud and forceful. It's about knowing how to control the narrative, influence people without them realizing it, and use their weaknesses against them. This is where the concept of strategic retreat becomes critical. The loudest people, the ones who always seem to be in control, are often the first to fall. They put all their cards on the table, revealing their plans and making themselves vulnerable. The ones who understand Machiavelli's philosophy, however, remain calm, patient, and calculated. They wait for the opportune moment and strike when it's least expected. By mastering the art of strategic retreat, you can gain more power than anyone who relies solely on brute force. This doesn't mean running away or avoiding challenges. Instead, it's about choosing when to engage and when to pull back. It's about waiting for your opponents to make a mistake before taking action. And when you do act, you do so from a position of strength, having already analyzed and understood the situation completely. The real manipulators are those who don't reveal their hand too early. They wait for the perfect moment to take action. And when they do so with precision and calculated force. This type of strategy can create an environment where the weak can rise above the strong, simply by being patient and observant. The loud, forceful people may dominate at first, but they eventually expose themselves. The quiet ones, those who remain unseen, win in the end. One of the most powerful aspects of Machiavelli's philosophy is the idea of controlling perception. Perception is everything in the game of power. If you can make people believe that you are not a threat, you gain the upper hand. The weakest people can often manipulate the strongest by playing on their assumptions. When you're underestimated, you have the freedom to act without being challenged. The loudest voices in the room may draw attention, but they also make themselves obvious targets. The key to gaining power, according to Machiavelli, is not to be seen as a threat, but to become indispensable. Those who rise to power do not do so by dominating others directly. Instead, they make themselves valuable in ways others cannot ignore. They understand that power doesn't come from force, but from influence and strategic positioning. By staying in the background, observing others' weaknesses, and waiting for the perfect moment, the seemingly weak can manipulate the situation to their advantage. The world of power is about managing perceptions, playing on the weaknesses of others, and acting when the moment is right. By being underestimated, you can control the narrative without anyone even realizing it. The best manipulators do not force their way to the top. Instead, they make sure they are indispensable and wait for the perfect time to step into the spotlight. When you're underestimated, you control the power. When others are confident they know your weaknesses, you can turn those very weaknesses into strengths. This is the art of manipulation in its most refined form. You don't need to fight every battle. You need to make sure you're needed, and when you're needed, you hold the power. To truly master the art of power, you must understand one core principle. Strength comes from knowing when to act and when to wait. The most powerful figures throughout history were often those who remained in the background, never drawing attention to themselves. These individuals understood the importance of patience and timing. They didn't act out of impulse or emotion. Instead, they observed the situation, waited for others to make their move, and then used their weaknesses against them. Machiavelli's teachings on power emphasize that invisibility is often the key to success. Those who are underestimated have the ability to manipulate events and rise to positions of authority without ever being seen as a threat. It's a long-term game, and the quiet ones who understand the rules of strategic power are the ones who ultimately come out on top. By waiting for others to reveal their flaws and acting at the right time, you can gain more power than anyone who relies on sheer force. The weakest people, the ones who understand the art of invisibility, ultimately hold the most power. Their ability to remain unseen while orchestrating events from behind the scenes is what makes them the true masters of influence. By following Machiavelli's principles, you can learn to play this game and rise to positions of power, quietly, strategically, and with control over every situation. But let me ask you this: why do we fear the very thing that makes us stronger? Is it the vulnerability of embracing our true power? Or is it the discomfort of confronting our deepest weaknesses? If you're starting to realize that there's a hidden power within you that you've been avoiding, then you need to watch the next video. The pain you avoid is slowly destroying you. The hidden wisdom of Carl Jung. It's time to face what you've been running from and unlock the strength that's waiting for you.